Live from New York, it's the show that celebrated a Thunder victory by wearing shorts to the office. Shorts.
Is it not summer? Is it not basically 100 degrees outside? Feels like 100.
KW Brew has some oddly, almost like puritanical rules about what men wear to the office.
Wearing shorts?
I look at him, he can't believe it.
I used to go on the air with shorts.
Yeah.
And I'd be dressed from the waist up, suit, shirt, tie,
You never
and
saw
shorts.
him back when we were on Zoom when he would stand up after the show
Shorts.
and he'd be wearing like some and one mixtape shorts.
That really
First hour, first things first. Starting with the champions. Thunder rolled to a 14-point victory. SGA had 29, 12 assists, playoff high for him. Regular season MVP, finals MVP, first-time champion. Quick stat correction. Turns out it was a 12-point victory. Did someone step on a line or something? Must have been one of those stat corrections. What was your number one takeaway from the victory?
I hate to do it to you, Kevin Wildes. Defense wins championships.
That's mine. You can't. That's literally what I said. That's what I have written down. I had a whole take on it.
I know you made up that slogan.
Yes.
But that's my biggest takeaway.
This is my whole take. Go ahead.
I know the big three of Chet, SGA, Jalen combined for 67 points yesterday. But that defense that led them to 68 wins, that led them to the NBA Finals, is what got them the championship. And it was the key to the whole series.
Yep.
Yesterday, they forced, I was saying it every game, Indiana can't turn the ball over, and if you do, you can't let them score in transition. They forced 23 turnovers yesterday, OKC, and scored 32 points on those turnovers. That's the same exact thing they did in Game 5. Those were the two pivotal games in the series. They go up 3-2 in Game 5. They win yesterday. Same exact numbers, number of turnovers, number of points off turnovers. So that enabled them to withstand. SGA, look, he was great, 29 and 12, but he shot 8 for 27. That's 29%.
Correct.
The team, Indiana shot better from the field, better from three, better from the free throw line, and out-rebounded OKC without Haliburton. And still lost because of the turnover. So
that's right.
And I know we're going to get to the dynasty stuff, but I would just say this. If you look at most, not necessarily all, but most of the recent dynasties, the Jordan Bulls, the Steph, Warriors, the LeBron and Wade in Miami, those were based on defense. Obviously, you had great offensive players, but those were great defensive teams.
Every single year.
And so that's a good sign for this OKC team to maybe do something in the future. But that's what it was. It was the defense.
Do you want to build on that, KW?
Sorry.
Build on it. It's my idea. I got stolen, right? No, I have some gravities. OKC's ranks this season, defensive ranks. In the regular season, they had the best defensive rating. In the playoffs, they had the best defensive rating. Opponents' field goals first, second in the playoffs. Steals, which you talked about a little bit, Brew, first in first. So I always have a backup take.
Yeah.
The other biggest takeaway from last night or OKC's season was they were good all year long. And for how much drama this playoffs had, guess who ended up winning? The team we thought was going to win in October. So I was surprised that they've had this level of consistency, a little bit of health luck, but they've been good this whole time, defensively, offensively. They've just done it all year.
Despite that, they didn't skate through the playoffs, right?
No,
you know what I mean?
didn't.
They faced elimination twice in these playoffs. It was weird. They had kind of two easy rounds, and every other. It was easy, very difficult, easy, very difficult. And this series ended up following the exact same pattern of the Denver series, as far as wins and losses, flow, and the Game 7 ultimately being a blowout.
Even an injury being a factor.
Right, and an injury being a factor, obviously, in different ways. But we all had kind of cousins of the same take, because it's the right take. They won the exact way they were supposed to, torturing the other team defensively. And the way OKC, the reason they won 68 games was not because, even though Shea was great not every game, but basically he was wildly consistent, the difference for them in the regular season was this. If we're having a good offensive game, we will blow you out.
Yep.
And if we're having a mediocre offensive game, we'll beat you by 6 to 10 because the defense was always there. And Brew's point about the stats being all equal or favoring Indiana, I can show it to you because look, as far field goal percentage, essentially equal. 3-pointers made, equal. Free throws made, equal. Offensive rebounds, essentially equal. So how do you win? You take 17 more shots.
There it is.
It's the field goal attempts.
Yeah.
They got 17 more shots than Indiana. And that's because of the line above it. Indiana had 15 more giveaway possessions than OKC did. That was the game. And as I was saying, I forget which series we first started talking about this, but where I said they are the first team for me since the 90s Bulls that with consistency can go on these 12-2 or 18-3 runs that are based purely on defense.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's exactly what they did from the end of the third quarter. Let me just show it real quick, Brew. End of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, it was a 4-point game. Even with Haliburton out, with 4 minutes left in the third quarter, it was a 4-point game. And then OKC didn't get, they hit 3 threes, but that's not an insane number. They had 4 stocks. The Pacers had 4 turnovers. They locked them down defensively. Poor TJ McConnell looked like he was in hell in a cell. And the game's over. I know that the Pacers valiantly cut it to 10 later, but that turned it from 4 to 21. And that was not because Shea got red hot.
Yep.
That was not because all of a sudden, anything, Case and Wallace. None of them were. It was because of their defense, and it was their identity all year.
I'm glad you brought up McConnell, who was great. Like, even yesterday, 16 points.
Yeah, just the turnovers.
Yeah, well, that's what the difference was. Like, he had a great series, but yesterday, even though he was scoring, and he kept scoring, you saw the difference between being an 18 to 23 minute a night guy, a lot of that against the reserves, versus being a 30-minute guy that they got to count on against starters a lot. Like, that showed you why, I don't know if some people were looking at like, oh, McConnell should start somewhere. He is a fantastic backup point guard. And he showed it in this series, but yesterday you saw the difference between facing the frontline defenders versus the reserves.
Can I show you some other things? So we talked about point differential, that they were blasting teams all year. And it felt like we took it a little bit with a grain of salt because we were like, well, the three-point era. Now that they've officially, cemented the championship, does this resonate any more for you?
I think adjusted for inflation, yeah. I don't think that they just had the 4th most dominant season in NBA history. You know what I mean? But I do think that it is.
A lot of it says that they had 2 40-point wins in the playoff. They have massive
Well, then
wins
they won.
too.
Yeah. They had the most 10-point wins, I think.
So I think that OKC has the ability, because of the defense and because they can get hot from 3 and they do have Shea, to blow anyone out. And because of the defense, they are almost unblowoutable.
Mm-hmm. But they got blown out several times.
They got blown
Denver
out.
Or Minnesota blew them out by 42.
So
I honestly thought that was like that sounds right, an emotional blowout rather than a strategic blowout.
That's
fine,
fair.
But I'm just saying they were blown. I doubt any of those teams on that graphic, and I don't know off the top of my head, were blown out like that.
Well, actually, the $71.
The other thing I would say is this. I do think that when we are talking about all-time great and all-time greatest, that facing elimination twice puts a ding in that. Like, I'm a big, I would love to be able to, when we talk about the greatest teams of all time, throw in the 2013 Heat because of the 27-game winning streak. I thought that was one of the most underrated, crazy things that's happened in modern NBA history. But the fact that in the finals they were down 3-2 and on the brink of, losing, and then that kind of takes the wind out of the sails from that one. And so when I think of the the most dominant juggernaut teams, they are not backs against the wall at any point in the postseason. And so I think that, to me, that's the relevant.
They're kind of
Well,
conflicting.
particularly against an Indiana team that, wasn't like,
A
they didn't
juggernaut
have
itself.
a superstar,
Yes.
wasn't, I know they got club superstar,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? Like
Going into the playoffs, didn't have a superstar.
Yeah. And then Denver with the injuries. It was a great, statistically and on paper, to be one of the greatest seasons.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you can have one of the greatest seasons and not be one of the greatest teams ever. I can have a great show, all-time great show, but not necessarily be the greatest.
Well, I think, how about this?
broadcaster. So I'm just saying.
Or I think that just
they had
to
a
cross
great
sports for a moment, had the Chiefs not gotten blown out by the Eagles in the Super Bowl, had they won it, that would have been, by any metric, one of the greatest seasons of all time. And I think most people, maybe not me, but most Chiefs fans would be like, that wasn't even the best Chiefs team of the last 5 years. You know what I mean? And so, I do think that's a thing that can exist.
Yeah. All right, on the other side, Haliburton looked to be on pace for a stellar Game 7, had 9 early points, but went down in the first quarter, was what we think is an Achilles tear. He greeted his teammates post-game in the tunnel. He later left on crutches.
So what happened in that game is why Brew always makes sure to say on the front end of stuff when we're talking about things like after Game 6, we're not doctors. Because I was on here on Friday after Game 6, like, man, he played too well for that. Like, I said flatly, I was like, it's not a Kevin Durant situation. Right. And it turns out, tragically,
Interestingly on that, quickly, when you saw Durant, and I didn't remember this until we saw the highlights, Durant walked off after his Achilles tear.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously Halliburton, so it was even a different level there.
But regardless, I talked to some active players, actually texted and talked to during the game right after it happened. Because I was trying to ask the question, how, if it was that close to tearing, how could he look so fluid and good in Game 6? And the answer that I got was, it's not like a hamstring or some of these other injuries where having the calf strain always severely limits your mobility. Sometimes you do, not that you feel fine, but you can move so different. It's just that the only way to heal it is totally get off it for a few weeks. And if you don't, you're just rolling the dice like this. And that's what he did. And so on the front end, I felt bad about my opinions, which were actually, wasn't knocking him, but I was like, man, he played great. How could he have been quite as injured? The other thing I will say is this, and this might be controversial, but I think it's right. I think it's good he played. I think that's what he wanted to. He knew the risks. They were real risks. The goal of team sports is to win a championship. And people can say, well, now, next year is lost. As far as Tyrese Haliburton and his team winning a championship, Game 6 and 7 of these finals had more championship equity associated with it than all of next season. Like when you're that close, you were right there. And so the fact I also, he had just started a 5-year, $250 million contract. So the finances stuff, he'll still be well under contract when he comes back. You feel terribly for him, but I don't think he made a mistake. I think that he took a calculated risk, and calculated risks can blow up on you. But I think he knew this is a moment that I am not guaranteed to get back, and he went into it eyes wide open and made that choice.
I'm going to piggyback on what you just said and maybe take it even further. He had to play. If he had sat out and they lost in 6 or 7 games, I think within himself, he would have been always wondering. I think it would have haunted him throughout his career, or, until he wins a championship, or throughout his career, or maybe longer. Because he would not know I would have got hurt.
Correct.
He would have always been sitting there like, man, should I have gone? We could have beat, whatever it was. So I think the number one, if you had the options in his situation, the number one option was play and don't get hurt.
Of course.
I think 2 and I hate to, like you said, you don't want to sound, hopefully this isn't going off the wrong way, but 2 was play and you get hurt, but there's closure there. It's like, okay, I'm going to be out a year. I'll come back. I'll be fine. If he had not played, there's no closure.
That's right.
This is like maybe the next 12 years, you're like, and you never get a championship.
Was that
I was
my
there.
moment?
Right.
Yes.
And so it obviously we all were heartbroken for him. And it was just, and especially he was off to such a hot start. And who knows what they have won. I think it's definitely on the board that they would have won because you've been talking about it. He's due a 30-point game. In each of the past 2 series, he had a 30-point game. This looked like it was going to be his 30-point historic game, and he gets up for the big moments.
Yes.
Yes, so he came out more aggressive. That was my first thing. Second thing is this. I'm trying to remember what. My thought throughout, like, especially as they were playing well early and then had the 1-point lead at the half, I was thinking, this is the year they got to win this game. They have got to win this game because next year it's a wrap.
But you thought they could at halftime?
Oh, yeah, I thought they had a shot. I definitely thought they had a shot.
They're up 1 with 2 quarters left in the season.
I mean, you knew their backs were, the odds were against them, but I thought they had a great chance, especially going in. I think that made OKC feel like, okay, they're up, and Haliburton's been out the whole second quarter. But the thinking was because next year you're not going to be close to a championship. So
you know what we hear a lot? Let's go until the wheels come off. Hey, let's go out tonight till the wheels come off. And then at like 11 p.m., I'm like, I got to go.
You don't even tell people.
The wheels are starting to wobble, and I'm not.
You don't even tell people you're going to
go. I'm gone.
Yeah, you just disappear.
This is what I thought. This guy knew this might happen. Like you said, eyes wide open. He's like, and he literally was like, I'm going to go until I can't walk. And you don't really see it in sports. Willis Reed is the shining example. Willis Reed walked onto the court, walked off the court. This is literally putting next season I don't care about. This will alter the trajectory of my career and career earnings. I don't care about it. When people talk about, he put his body on the line. He took an offensive foul. Look at him. Put it all on the line. He dove for the ball. Like, this is literally putting it all on the line. And Windhorst had this stat this morning, and I just want to reiterate it because it speaks to what you said. 23 diagnosed calf strains over the court in this year. 22 players missed time from Windhorst. He's the only guy that said, I'm not going to miss time. So he knows that. He's like, I don't care, and I kind of know what's going to happen, especially in the East. He just saw Dame go down. He just saw Tatum go down, and it's right there for him. And that's one of the reasons why I think he started off so hot. It's like, I might not make it this whole game. I'm going to I'm going to go pedal to the metal the whole time.
Yes. The one thing that will really, and it obviously is bad enough that he got hurt, but what will really bother me over the course of his career is and I don't think this will happen, but if he wasn't ever the same player.
Well, and that's,
you know what I mean? Like, and I don't think he will be.
But it's not a guarantee.
It's not a guarantee. No, it's not a guarantee.
But we've just seen like Durant, and we've seen players nowadays come back.
But with listen, sports at the highest level, this is not breaking news. It's mostly physical, but a lot of it is psychological. Mm-hmm. And to Bruce's point, he might not have been the same player if he decided not to play because of what it would do to his mental.
Yeah.
Like that's and so there are not many. I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but like catastrophic injuries in championship game, like deciding games. Like obviously Kyrie got hurt early in the finals. KD got hurt in the game 5. The one that, but like in a do or die game, the one that always sticks in my mind is McGahee in college football. You know, when kid got his knee turned around on him. It's rare. And seeing it happen, and we'll talk more about this later, because of this scourge of Achilles injuries, we've all become Achilles experts, where it's the only injury that we die, like the broadcast won't say it because they shouldn't, but everyone watching was like, I know, we know the reaction, we know the spring, we know all of it. And to Brew's kind of other point about Indiana next year, overarching for the league as a whole, we've never seen a conference as discombobulated as the Eastern Conference is going to be next season.
Yeah.
The three best players in the conference, arguably, Giannis, who's second best player, tore his Achilles, Jason Tatum, who tore his Achilles, and Tyrese Haliburton, who tore his Achilles. The Vegas favorites for the East right now are the Cavs, who we discussed, like, do they need to? They've never been past round two.
Right.
And the Knicks, who fired their coach a few weeks ago. And so, like, it is such a upside down situation, and it is primarily because of the same injury to three different stars in the league. It's remarkable, and it is in a weird way, and I don't know enough about Tommy John, but it's becoming like what we see where we're just used to it in baseball. Like, oh, there's going to be a number of pitchers every year that it's like, oh, they need Tommy John. Like, I don't think the NBA can afford for the Achilles to become that because there's fewer players and fewer stars and all of it, but that's the only comp for it.
Well, there's a lot of talk within league circles about just the stress on the players nowadays, because we always talk about it was more physical in the 90s, and it obviously was, but it was packed around the paint. It was more banging, more bumping, but you weren't moving as much defensively. Now, even bigs are guarding out to the three-point line, guarding hard, because teams really emphasize defense nowadays.
Yes.
So you're guarding out hard, your joints have more pressure on them, you're doing more movements, more starting and stopping, herky-jerky. And so I think that has something to do with
feet, and they're
with
running. It's just, it's kind of a untold ground we're about to cover in the league.
Yeah, I hope this injury goes down as a heroic moment for him. Right now, it's a tragic moment, but I hope it's remembered as a heroic moment, as a guy knowing the risks and being willing to put it all on the line and having it not work out, but that is part of.
I think it has.
I would hope so, but I don't know.
Could go down.
Yeah, but it was. KD doesn't get that totally. So I agree with you. It should, but KD. Listen, KD. It was different, but it was the same. KD, it felt like, oh, KD, took his time, but KD obviously was not ready to come back.
Yep.
There's
Came back,
also
tried
a
to
little
help his
feeling
team.
of, there is a little feeling out there that he, with all due respect to the words, he was pressured.
Yes.
He felt, I mean, I felt totally different about KD than I felt about Haliburton. Yeah. Like, I was like, there's, obviously not a doctor, there's no way KD should be playing. I really felt like there's no way he can go out there and play. Whereas Haliburton, I didn't feel that way. It didn't seem like it was the same degree of strain.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.